Okay, let's get started. Welcome. This series is brought to you by BHPN, the Black Healthcare Network, and the series is basically the Business 101 Solid Foundation Series, workshop number 2. And our theme today is capitalizing on markets, and our topic is product market fit. Now, before I get into the agenda and the introduction, as well as some other housekeeping, I just wanted to mention that this is the second installment on the series that we're doing, and you can find a video of the first one on YouTube and other BHPN social platform channels. Visit bhpn.ca to learn more, become a member, and get on the directory. It's all free. Okay, so let's get started. Our agenda for today, we're going to go through an introduction and a quick recap of what we talked about last time. We're going to go through understanding product market fit, and we're going to break it down into 2 sections, understanding products and then understanding markets. After that, we'll bring it together to actually, we'll go a little deeper into understanding markets by looking at the target markets and customer personas. And then we'll delve into the indicators and measures of product market fit. We'll look at some examples of product market fit, some common challenges and overcoming those challenges. And lastly, we'll touch on why product market fit matters. And we'll conclude. If there's any questions, I'll field them. And I'd ask that you visit our feedback survey that will be in the chat and in the description of the video below if you're watching this as a video on demand afterwards, to provide feedback so we can bring better content to you in the future that meets what you want in terms of your needs. All right. So the regular introduction, BHPN, if you don't know, is the Black Healthcare Professional Network, and it's a professional organization dedicated to advancing the careers of Black professionals in the healthcare industry. We do that by providing unique services through, say, somebody like me, who is a BHPN business advisor focused on helping Black healthcare professionals solve very real and pertinent problems the right way through providing access to critical resources that support creating and realizing business visions. This workshop that you're watching right now, or you'll be watching in video on demand later, is one of those ways that we provide support. My support services also include one-on-one sessions in an advisory format, as well as just working through some business problems with you in an ad hoc manner. So if you want to access this kind of personalized service, I encourage you to join the BHPN network and become a member, and then you would have access to my Calendly to book a one-on-one session with me, especially if you have more questions about what we're going to talk about today. So as I mentioned, the business advisory service is one way that we assist Black healthcare professionals. Particularly, we understand that there's some Black healthcare professionals that don't just want to network, which is also something that we do. We facilitate. There's some Black healthcare professionals that want to start their own practice or delve into the world of entrepreneurship or just business dealings, and they need support in terms of information. So we provide support that's required. This is all, again, accessible free of charge if you're self-identifying as a Black minority person. But if you're not self-identifying as a minority from the Black race, you can also still support by becoming an advisor or a mentor for professionals who need that kind of mentorship. So now that that's out of the way, let's jump into a couple housekeeping points, and then we'll move on to the meat and potatoes of why we're here today. I'm going to be keeping everything really concise because we have about 55 minutes for the whole session. So I do advise you to look at this over and over again as you watch the videos in the future. So housekeeping. First of all, like I said, become a member. It's free. You gain access to resources, networking opportunities, events, and much more. You can watch Workshop 1, Problem Solution Fit, on YouTube for a stronger foundation behind what we're going to be talking about today, because it builds on that principle. You join the BHPN directory, which connects you to markets, patients who need your services. If you are interested in that kind of exposure, it's also on the website. Once you become a member, you can book an advisory session with me, like I said. Head over to the feedback form, like I mentioned at the beginning, and use the session link provided in the description below to provide your feedback, and follow BHPN on all platforms and social media. All right, recap of workshop 1, problem solution fit. We already identified that this is the core foundation to doing business. You have to have a problem that you're tackling, and you have to have a solution that aligns with it. So we established a baseline understanding of what problem solution fit is. And after that, we deep dove into problems and solution spaces respectively. We talked about how problems should be actionable and how problems should be identified by looking at the origin and then going through some discovery and then doing some data analysis and then validating or confirming what you find through that process. And we talked about the solution space and how the solution space involves making meaningful things that are desirable, feasible, and viable over time. And just to give you a quick recap on what those things mean, desirable is somebody wants it. Feasibility means it's possible to do it in the first place. And viability means like you can sustain the value of that solution over time, and it will support business growth. So after that, we discussed the process of achieving problem solution fit. And then we went into some examples of companies with good problem solution fits. I remember we talked about the Life Straw company that provides like self-help water like filtration kits for people in remote locations that don't have access to filtration options. We talked about ERA that brings an already existing solution to an underserved market in the West African region of emergency healthcare services. And then we also looked at one other company who seems to escape me for now, but that's okay. Then we outlined the benefits of gaining problem solution fit alignment. So many things, including like just general success in the market space, validation of your idea, yada, yada, yada. And then lastly, we rounded up with the common pitfalls and ways to overcome challenges with establishing problem solution fit. We took a deeper dive into understanding when to pivot from a problem that seemingly is not yielding good returns in the way of solution fit. And we talked about when to persist, because that's usually what people struggle with. How do I know when to stick? How do I know when to twist? And we said that pivoting is mostly indicated by when you're on your current trajectory and you are not seeing any useful insights or information that would suggest that you persevere with your current solution or with your current problem exploration. And persistence is when you're on there and you've made meaningful progress towards gaining information or just building out a solution that will support your hypothesis of there being a problem that can be solved with a solution that it's in your mind. So once the paradigm shifts from one to the other, then you know when to pivot or when to persist. So now that we've done that, let's just jump into understanding the product market fit space. I'd ask that if you have questions, we'll just take some time at the end of this session to delve through the questions so it doesn't break too much of the flow. But also you can put it in the chat if you want to store the questions so you don't forget. All right, so understanding product market fit. Product market fit simply describes a scenario in which a company's target customers are buying, using, and telling others about the company's product in numbers large enough to sustain that product's growth and profitability. This is according to Product Plan. Actually, it's a really handy resource. They're not promoting this. This is just one of the resources that I like to use to understand concepts with regards to product spaces. Why is product market fit important? Without product market fit, it doesn't matter how good you are at everything else concerning business, you would ultimately lose. And that is the sad reality of it. Most people think that once they get a problem solution fit, because and somewhere in the paradigm of gaining problem solution fit, you talk to somebody that experiences the problem for real, they think that that seals the deal. I can now go out, make this thing en masse and make money. The truth about it is markets behave differently from a microcosm of individuals or just one individual that you use to validate the hypothesis of a problem. You have to understand the market, you have to negotiate with the market, you have to even identify the market in the first place before you can now say, this is how I'm going to respond with my solution and package it in a way that it suits their needs. A solution is just a hypothetical or a prototype. A product is that hypothetical and prototype confirmed, put into something that can be interacted with the market. So this is why product market fit is important on top of problem solution fit. Some key points regarding problem solution fit. It is also a systematic and methodical process, but it varies from company to company, initiative to initiative, because usually markets do not express themselves in a homogeneous way. So your approach to the market is based on how the market behaves in the first place. However, there's still a systematic and methodical approach. Nextly, there must be an established need for your product by an identifiable group of individuals that are willing, able, and ready to pay for said product. So the words here are carefully chosen because a market is, and we'll get into more of this later, a market is identifiable. It's essentially an identifiable group of individuals. Actually, I would add / entities like organizations that are willing. So they have an interest in what you're selling, able, they're not just willing, they are able to pay, and they're ready, because they can be willing and able, but they're not ready right now. Timing is off, yada, yada, yada. But if they have all these three things, then they're essentially a prime market for your product. And last but not least, as we've already illuminated, it's not the same thing as problem solution fit. Now I have a little graph that was, or a little chart or a visual that was created or coined by Dan Olson. He is one of the prominent voices in this, with this concept of product market fit. And it's basically the product market fit pyramid. So as you can see, there's several layers, and they're divided into what constitutes, or what is constituted in the product space and what's constituted in the market space for you to have product market fit. Basically, in the product space, there's UX, there's the feature set. UX means user experience, and there's the value proposition. Now, these things all cater towards the product, and this is what the users typically respond to when you have a product. And then underneath that is the market, and this is what your product is serving. So it's serving a target customer base, which is the foundation of this whole product market fit paradigm. And that target customer base has to have an underserved need. And we'll jump into some of the quick definitions of these concepts. So to start with, user experience, as I mentioned, refers to the feeling an individual experiences while interacting or using a system, in this case, a product. And then next is the feature set. Feature set refers to the list of all functions and capabilities a product will offer its users. Last but not least, the value proposition is a statement that summarizes why a customer should choose your product. And then for the market space, an underserved need refers to gaps in customer satisfaction caused by existing product insufficiencies or the lack thereof of an existing product. So usually an underserved need is highlighted by maybe complaints about something, a very janky way of doing something, or just people not realizing, but you understanding that there's a better way to do something with your product. And this is typically established in the problem solution fit space or domain. And last but not least, target customers refers to a specific group of or type of persons you want to sell your product to. Now, we'll talk more about target customers and consumer personas later in the session. But since we're keeping it snappy, we'll go into the next concept. So now, as promised, we're going to get a deeper dive into the product space that we've already understood that UX feature sets and value propositions are part of. Actually, before I say that, the combination or the intersection of these two spaces of what constitutes a product and what constitutes the market space, that is where you establish product market fit. Because say you have a target market and there's an underserved need, if you communicate a value proposition behind a product and you say, this is why this product is good for you, and then they look at the features, and then while they're interacting with those features, they have a good experience, more likely than not, you've established product market fit. And you can do this at scale as well. So apologies for going back. Now about products. According to Product Plan, a handy resource, a product is anything a business sells that solves a market problem or addresses a customer need or desire. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's actually written in plain English, but what we typically don't understand is what constitutes a product. Now you might be wondering, well, you haven't mentioned anything about services and how they fit with the market. But based on this breakdown of what can be classified a product, you see why I haven't mentioned services so far. Products are typically understood as physical items, but in reality, products can be physical items, as was said, intangible experience services, virtual and digital entities, and even personalities and personas. Now, that sounds a little bit radical, but when you think about people that they are their brands, so for example, YouTubers, for example, they are the product, and without them, the channel is pretty much dead. Another nuanced example is typically with freemium products like Facebook and the rest of them that don't charge you, and you wonder how do they make their money. Typically, it's because you are the product, and there's a lot of value in giving people legally, of course, information that would allow them understand their market basis better. So as you continue to interact in those spaces, it gives them an understanding of who you are in mass, not you in particular with your particular name most times. And they try to segment you into a target customer base, which we'll talk about. And that essentially means you're a product because you're something of value that somebody is willing, able, and ready to pay for. And yeah, that's what it is. So things to consider about products. Now, this list, as usual, is non-exhaustive. It's just some things that I like to highlight for people to expand their horizon and the way they think about products. So when you're trying to interact or exist in the product space, when you have reached that stage in your journey to getting to the market, you have to think about product design, right? It's self-explanatory. What does the product look like? What is the form factor? What is the feeling I'm trying to invoke when people use this product? What are the features that are going to be embedded into this product? And what, most importantly, is not there, right? Because you can't do everything all at once. You have to think about the branding and packaging. Things that are not branded and packaging, unfortunately, in this world is hard to move because people or markets have such a short attention span and they're spoiled for choice that you need to be able to distinguish yourself, at least even visually, from the competition or from just being classified as junk. And then you have to consider costing and pricing. That's self-explanatory. There's a cost associated with making a product, and your price should be able to cover those costs and establish a margin for your profit. Distribution. Well, how am I going to reach the market that needs my product en masse? You have to think about that. And these things typically affect what the final product will look like, directly or indirectly. Marketing and promotions. Well, how do people hear about my product? And how do I get them excited about the product? And quality assurance and safety. Well, we all know about different standards in different industries that ensure consumers are protected. And you don't want to be at the forefront of of a quality and safety scandal. So you have to think about that as you're baking it into your product. Sustainability is another one. This one is much more of a modern movement, but it goes beyond just technical sustainability of the product. Like how can I make something that lasts, but can I make it with like other sustainability, like environmental sustainability in mind, because people do pay attention to stuff like that. And it's just your own little contribution to making sure our environment is kept healthy. Intellectual property rights. Now, if you're doing something very nuanced, it is advantageous to secure a right to withhold that property from being copied by the mass market or second movers, depending on where you are on your journey in interacting with the market. So I usually encourage people, even though it looks like a daunting thing, get a lawyer, an IP lawyer, and do the groundwork for your IP rights, because you stand to benefit when you do this. So the last but not least is product end of life. Now, most people think, oh, I've put something out there, it's going to be there forever. No, every product has its life cycle. And there's the twilight and sunset or drop off of a product. And you have to think about that, because it might inform what you want to do at the beginning to either stretch out that life cycle even further, or understand what the next generation of your product would look like once you start to reach those phases in the product life cycle. So now about markets, right? In the context of product market fit, I know we all have different understandings of markets. A market is a group of customers, people and organizations, like we've mentioned, that possess a need which can be satisfied by a product and can partake in a value exchange. Now, the value exchange is basically, are they willing, are they able, and are they ready to pay for what you have given them? So we've already talked about the market definition, so we'll jump right into the key attributes of a market. Now, some people might think, well, how do you know when it's a market versus just an individual customer? And is anything a market? But no, we've already established some criteria that qualifies a market, and there's no authority, final authority on what markets are and their full parameters. But as markets or as business landscapes evolve, different things are considered markets, but generally they take the same foundational form factor. So key attributes of markets include they have to have an established need. Beyond being a group of identifiable customers, people, or organizations, they have to have an established need for a solution in form of a product, multiple members, so more than one, or some people would argue more than two. But if you're in a market that has only two players, or like a very few players, we know what that's called, oligopoly, or those are the people that are actually few players in a market full of many. And then there's another one which the name for escapes me, but is the reverse, where you have few buyers and then a lot of people that are trying to sell to them. But the market also has to have demand and supply forces acting on them, or acting with them. So there must be a clear pull for a product, and there must be a clear channel or a way to push that product to them. Accessibility. Well, we know that some markets cannot be accessed, like, for example, North Korea. Even if there's an established need for certain things that we have in the Western world, there are multiple members, and there's an element of demand and supply. If the borders are open, you can't access them. So actually, you can't call that in good faith a market. It's just a bunch of people that cannot be accessed. Value exchange. So they must be ready to interact with you. Some markets are there, but because of political reasons, they don't want to interact. So you might as well just forget calling them a market, and you can just call them an unrealized market. And last but not least, opportunity for competition. If you are the only, it's like a monopoly, but if you're the only person serving that market, you might as well consider it like, it's still a market, but you have to think about it in a reverse fashion and say, the only reason why it's a monopoly is because this company or this entity has blocked the opportunity for competition. It doesn't mean that an opportunity for competition does not exist. It means that they're actively blocking the opportunity. So every market has an opportunity for competition, whether you think about it the traditional way or you think about it in inverse. So things to consider about markets. There's something like a target audience. You can carve out a target audience because a market has different flavors of people, entities in there that all have different attributes to them, but they're people or they're groups of entities or people that have similar attributes. And carving out this group is what you call a target audience that would resonate more with your product. Markets have the ability to provide customer feedback, which is quite integral to the sustenance of your product over a long period of time, like we spoke about with viability. There is a competitive landscape to them, like the opportunity for competition. Market size and potential markets are actually they're like diaphragms. They expand and contract over time, and there's an ebb and flow to the way markets behave. And there's a way to forecast where a market is going. That's why we have market research that's littered everywhere as a prerequisite for understanding if a business will be successful or not. You have to look at the market behavior. And then they also have other behaviors in forms of trends and dynamics. So certain markets in certain geographies behave certain ways. And there's some things that markets adopt or you can forecast that they're going to adopt because of trends. Some markets are seasonal, some markets are cyclical in nature, some markets are chaotic in nature. You never know what's going to happen. So these are dynamics and trends. And adoption and retention, right? Markets can be adopted and they can be retained over time. Like you can carve out a little space for yourself and enjoy doing business with that market, and vice versa. They can adopt and retain you as a supplier of a product that satisfies their need. Value perception. Markets respond to or markets engage rather in value analysis. It might not be scientific in nature, but there is a logical model that markets respond to based on value. They negotiate price, they negotiate what they can gain out of it. And this is also a constant back and forth between a product supplier, a company, or an individual, and the market who stands to benefit from that. So we're going into understanding target markets and customer personas. Let's start. There's 3 parts to this, but I broke it down in a way that drives us down all the way to customer personas from what precedes target markets. So what precedes target markets are market segments. So if you look at the diagram, you see a bigger circle with 4 other circles contained in there. We call that the general market. And then the unique circles in there are how I put it, intentionally studied and grouped set of people or entities in the market that behave a certain way or have the same attributes. So as I defined it, this refers to a group of potential or existing customers who share similar characteristics, needs, and or behaviors. Definition of a market segment can be done by demographics, which means like age, race, and all that basic information. Geographics, where they are they in North America, Europe, Africa, you name it. Psychographics, how they behave, how they perceive things, and like their other like quirks and attributes. Behavioral, so this is more so like how they interact. I know I mentioned behavior, and forgive me, that's just for lack of a better word. Behavioral is how they act on an interactive basis with things in the markets that are already existing, or how they act without those things in the first place. Price sensitivity. Some markets are they care a little much about pricing, and then some others don't care about pricing, even if it's for the same product. Some people prefer generic, some people prefer luxury, and markets can be segmented that way. Benefits. So markets can be segmented in terms of the benefits that they get from using the product. So some people benefit more than others when you give them a product, but it's still like a necessary product for people. I don't have any examples right here, but the more you think about it, different people benefit or stand to benefit from different things. Like some people use Excel for like hard, like heavy lifting work, and those people belong to the business B2B space where you can sell Excel to them, while some people just use it for simple budgets and that's all they use it for. So there's other things like occasion. Markets express themselves by occasion. So for example, the World Cup, there's a certain market, even though there's different kinds of people that come into the World Cup, there is a market for specific things that are sold around that time, and cultural festivals, etc. Usage rates. Some people are power users of certain things. Some people are light users. You would like to think about people that buy electronic devices. You can segment by the usage rates and give them a pro version and give them a basic version. So now that we understand target markets, let's understand target markets. Now, there's a certain level of intentionality that comes with ignoring the rest of the market segments and focusing on one. And target markets essentially refers to a group of customers that businesses prioritize and can serve with this product. So, like I said, that's intentionality of prioritizing one segment, because you can't serve everybody. And if you can serve everybody, then the lighter pink circle is actually your target market, and we call that a mass market. You're serving a mass market that has a generic need. Take, for example, salt. It is a commodity that everybody will buy, so there's no real need to segment people, at least on a fundamental level, but other influences behind competition force people to segment and say, okay, sea salt versus iodized salt, yada, yada, yada. Selection of a target market is based on resources of who's supplying the product, competitive advantages, like your leg up against any other player in terms of competition in the same market space, which is the general market, and attractiveness of the market. Say, for example, you create a product that's niche and you already have competitors serving the other three that have been grayed out now, but they have underserved the light yellow, I don't know what color that is, market. You would typically want to take advantage of the fact that they are ignored and service their need while gaining returns for servicing that need. So your product might look a different way or slightly skewed from the original value hypothesis that you were able to create when you did the problem solution fit. And last but not least, so it drills down from market segments to the target market. And within that target market, you now have this thing called the customer personas. Just to quickly define it, because this one is a little bit more nuanced than the other two that we spoke about. It refers to the fictional detailed representation of specific individuals within a target market. Personas go beyond surface level secondary market research data. They are generated based on a deep primary research data like interviews and surveys. Personas define the motivations, needs, goals, challenges, etc., and help humanize the target market. So now we've been talking about these people in form of like an abstract, segment them, this and that. Well, when you get your target market, you're getting closer and closer to the individuals that make up that target market. So it is a good idea to start to humanize them, because you want to understand their needs, hopes and dreams, challenges, pain points, jobs to be done, all of those things. And you typically do that efficiently through interviews, surveys, and then just focus groups, actually, which doesn't make it there. So things that you would look to use to build a customer persona include attributes of, like we mentioned, in defining market segments, attributes of this person, this fictional person that is an anchor or a reference point or an index to how the rest of the target market are, because we already established that they're similar. So you build attributes of this person, and it doesn't have to be all the way correct. By the time you start interviewing people, you get more of a color, more of a high definition picture of what the customer looks like. Needs and goals, you get that through the interviews. Challenges and pain points, like we mentioned, behaviors and decision-making processes. Now, you may not know this, or you may not be cognizant of this in real time, but everybody and every time you make a decision, there is a decision-making process. There are things that you rationalize, there are things that you prioritize, there are things that you eliminate, and there's things that you substitute. There's things that you understand are benefits that you can't get if you go with something else, and there's things that you just do in general to make sure that you are satisfied with the product that you get, whether it's objectively true or not. We all go through these processes. And last but not least, there's two more. Preferred channels and communication styles. Like I said, markets behave differently, and markets, they like to be talked to in a certain way. You don't get to decide, the market decides. And last but not least, attitudes and values. Some markets are snobbish, some markets are really welcoming, some markets are unforgiving. Some markets are just opulent, and they value different things. Some markets value environment more than any other thing, like the environmental sustainability of your product. Some value the operational efficiency of your company delivering that product, or operational excellence. Some value the personability when you deliver your product. Some value just being left alone and just picking up what they want. So you have to understand these things and bake them into the customer persona. Now, when you have the customer persona, you start to look through all the list of things. After you've done your interviews and your due diligence, you look through the list of things and you start to make inferences about how this would affect your product. And then when you make those inferences and you actually create a version or an iteration of your product, you will then take it back to the people that belong to this target market and test with them through focus groups or other interviews, and then just really pick on how they're feeling when they see the product, what are their reactions, how they interact with the product, understand this, record the data, and come back and improve. So this is the iterative product development process. That's out of scope, but that's something that I can also talk to you about one-on-one if and when you decide to sign up for business advisory services. So now, measures and indicators of product market fit. Now, measures and indicators they intersect, but they're actually two different things. For all intents and purposes in product market fit, understanding them. Measures are typically the cold hard, like statistics that you can, or information that you can extrapolate from using measurement models. And some of them include NPS. Now, this is Net Promoter Score. You have a spectrum of people, and they fall into different brackets, and there's 3 brackets. You have the denier or the detractor, you have the neutral, and then you have the promoter. And usually it's on a range from 1 to 10. We ask them to score you on these factors or certain factors about how they feel about the product and if they're likely to tell somebody about the product, etc. And you aggregate the scores, and typically you get indices of where you stand, or a number that illuminates whether you have more promoters or you have neutrals and you have detractors. Sometimes you can get a spread depending on how many times you run the exercise. Churn rates, customer retention, so that's CLV. You typically know that you've established good product market fit when, one, you have majority of your market saying like they're a promoter, when you know that you're not churning people, and churn means like losing or attrition, like removing. So if you're not losing customers and customers are staying, then you know that your product actually serves what they need. Growth rates. A market's not stagnant, as we alluded to. Markets expand and contract, and in the expansion, sometimes even in the contraction, if you see your company or the adoption of your product growing, then you know that you've established good product market fit. Market share. As you continue to play in a market filled with competitors, you start to understand if I am usurping some of their shares already. And if you're doing that, it means people are turning their heads to you because you have a better product that satisfies their needs. Word of mouth and referrals. If people freely give promotion about what you're doing, then you know you've hit the jackpot, because people would only refer people in one of two cases: when your product is absolutely amazing or when it's absolutely terrible. So if you're experiencing growth rate, no churn rates, good customer retention, market share increase, most likely there's word of mouth involved and it's positive. Customer acquisition cost. Now, because people do the legwork of advertising for you by talking to their friends and family about you, you start to realize that you spend less on marketing efforts. You spend less trying to convince people to come over to your side. And that's when you know that you have good product market fit. Now, some indicators. So indicators are just like things that you can perceive from your external environment, like stimuli that confirm what the measures are saying or predicate what the measures are going to say. And one of them includes the quality of customer feedback. Hey, we love your product. Your product's awesome. We want to use it more. If you get more of that, then typically the measure will say the same thing. Level of customer engagement and marketing efforts. There are some companies that have die-hard fans when they market stuff. They ride or die for the company itself because they love the product. You feel like or can see that you are unable to keep up with the market demand. The more people talk about you, the more there's a craze about what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be like viral type product market fits. There's still the incremental or the exponential increase in your market share by just having people want it more. You see that you start to struggle. It's better to get that kind of pressure than to grow first and then have nobody to sell to. So that pressure usually forces you to grow, and that's when you can expand your operations to serve more markets. You have an understanding, or you know and understand your customers very well. So with all the back and forth of trying to understand how the customer thinks, what they feel, what they want to do, how they respond to certain communication and stuff like that, you start to understand, hey, I know my customers really well, and I could tell that if I add this feature, it would just completely alienate them, or it will bring more of them onto this because they've been clamoring for this, or they've been talking to me about this with the quality of the customer feedback. Now, it doesn't have to be all positive feedback, by the way. If a customer base is willing to tell you when you've messed up, then you know that you have a good and engaged customer base. And last but not least, your cost of acquiring a new customer is relatively low compared to industry standard and or competitor benchmarks. So your competitors might be spinning in their heads thinking, it's so much, we spend so much over the course of how long to get just one customer, and you're doing it in half the time, spending 75% less of the cost because people are doing the legwork for you to getting more people to use your product. So this is how measures and indicators relate. And now for examples of product market fits, you have ZocDoc, an online healthcare marketplace. Just a little bit about ZocDoc. It's an online healthcare marketplace that connects patients with doctors. And by the way, none of this is sponsored. It's just me looking for great examples that can give you a better sense of good product market fit. So it connects patients with doctors and healthcare providers. Patients can find both and book appointments with healthcare professionals based on their specialties, locations, and availability. The reason why they're here is because they weren't doing so well in 2017, and they experienced this struggle because they had lost product market fit. So revenues were stagnant for them, and because the pricing model was so stiff, it alienated the doctor segment of their customers. And they later remodeled their values around patients first, which doctors resonate with. So you're speaking the language that the customers of your products care about. They gave them more flexible and affordable pricing, and then that saw their resurgence in the online healthcare market space, because doctors the barrier to entry or financial barriers to entry for the doctors were low. And with more doctors being on there, you can see how the cascading effect works. They didn't have to put so much effort into getting the other players in their customer base to adopt their product as well. So the next one is Fitbit. Now, Fitbit is a wearable technology company that specializes in health and fitness tracking devices. Their products such as fitness trackers, smartwatches, have gained popularity among consumers looking to monitor their physical activity, sleep patterns, and overall health. So there's this wave of health consciousness that has been going as we've been tracking forward in time, and people are becoming more health conscious. And with the alignment between what Fitbit was offering and where the market trends were going, as you remember, we talked about trends and dynamics of markets being a key attribute of markets, or something to consider about markets. They basically rode that wave, for lack of a better metaphor. Fitbit produced something, actually, arguably, it was before this explosion of health conscious retail health management systems, and then they basically took advantage of that trend in the market and went forward. Same thing with Calm. Calm, while not a traditional healthcare company, Calm is a mental wellness and meditation app that has gained popularity for its focus on stress reduction and mental well-being. You can imagine during the pandemic, this wave of anxiety, pressure, depression, all of these things hit the general population en masse. And having an option like Calm that doesn't require you to go to a yoga class because you couldn't meet up with people was a very great alternative. And it was a product that really was just in time to serve the needs of people. And you can attribute some of that growth to just being simple and accessible for everybody to use, and very highly customizable to the person, because they're selling to the mass market and everybody needs it for their unique use case. So being as democratic as possible and as feature rich as possible, like Calm, you can then get like what you need customized to by yourself when you get the app. Now, I'm not pushing any app, I just use them as an example. Right, so common challenges and overcoming these challenges. Common challenges include insufficient market research data. If you don't know about your market, you're not going to get the fit. That's just the end all be all. Limited customer feedback. If you don't have a channel to understand what they're saying when you put like a filler out into the market space, you're not going to be able to improve your product to be able to create a better fit. Unclear articulation of value proposition. If the market is confused about what you're trying to sell them, they're not going to buy, because chances are there's somebody else that is clear on what they want to sell. Competition and market saturation. Now, not all products can burst into the market and just take it over by storm. It's actually quite difficult to do. But when you have a very lucrative market that's responding well to products and needs more products, you tend to find that if you're not one of the entrants into the market, is a very tough space. Think about phones, for example. You will be hard-pressed to find a phone every year that comes from a new manufacturer that blows up and takes the market by storm. It's just not possible. Or it is, but it's highly unlikely. Next is market timing. If you're making masks in 2024 and COVID is still even much more further of a distant memory, although we know that it's not a question of if, but a question of when the next one comes around. This is not the scope of this conversation, but you will start to reason that you will not make as much from a market as you would if it was during the pandemic. Take, for example, the timeliness of vaccines and whatnot. A lot of these companies do enjoy the returns from being able to serve a market that needs them at the right time. And we also looked at the example of Calm as well as the others. So external influencing factors. Now, PESTLE means the environment, the different kinds of environments that make up the business landscape and their forces on a business. This includes political, environmental, social, technological, legal, and economical factors. This is a whole topic on its own, so let's just keep it at that. There are different forces. Take, for example, legal. You might have a good product that the market wants, but the government's like, no, you're not selling here, and that's final. Last but not least, unexpected events. For example, if you're a company that just started trying to serve people, patients in a central location for a unique thing, and then COVID hits, well, I don't know how you're going to do that. Maybe look at massage parlors or like chiropractors and all of those people in those spaces. It's difficult for them to maneuver unexpected events like COVID, overcoming challenges. So the advice I usually provide people is you take a customer-centric approach, regular pulse checks to evaluate alignment. As we always been stressing, go back to your customers that represent a significant portion of your target market or your selected market segment, rather. Talk to them, get an understanding of what they want. It's not about you and what you think they want. At the end of the day, they would only respond to what you can give them that satisfies their need, not your need. Perseverance. It's not easy to break into a market. It's not easy to establish product market fit. If it were, it wouldn't be a topic of discussion, and it wouldn't be the cause of many businesses, their downfalls. So you have to persevere. If you don't get it immediately, that's fine. It is a trial and error process. You fail fast and you fail as often as you need to until you get to the success, which is product market fit. And last, with the penultimate, importance of adaptability, be willing to pivot and make adjustments based on market feedback and changing needs. We talked about knowing when to persist and when to pivot. And if you recall that, you would know that is based on trajectory and the gathering or the wealth of meaningful progress made in terms of information and or like solutioning for that specific market. Last but not least, we mentioned iterative product development. You need agility and you need continuous learning. It's all baked into the other pieces of advice that I've proffered. So take from that what you will. And last but not least, before we conclude, why product market fit matters. It matters for a plethora of reasons, but these are some that I could just bring out and highlight because I think these would leave a long-lasting impact on you when you're trying to establish product market fit. Validation of your business idea. You don't want to create a business or a product, create a business around a product and still be second-guessing yourself. It's not going to help. Like, you need to be very assured in the idea that your product is going to work and the market has said it is going to work. Market acceptance. Yes. Like, if a market rejects you, you're done. You're done. It's just that simple. There's nothing you can do to convince a market otherwise if they've rejected you. The market would only decide to accept you back if they deem it good enough. Sure, you can persist, but it's not you really opening up the market. It's the market responding to the changes that you're making. And that's how the market will accept you. So it matters because when you're negotiating market acceptance, you don't want to spend, you'll be expending resources. And it's one of the points here. And you don't want to do that for a long time because nobody has cash to burn. Customer satisfaction, it's a good idea to keep your customers satisfied because they'll undergird the growth of your company and the sustainability of your company. Higher chances of success, that's self-explanatory. Reduce business risk. Well, I don't have to be second guessing myself and then going out to get like suppliers, vendors, yada, 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 on the half chance that the market is going to accept it. Focus on scaling. It would allow you to focus on growing because, like we said, the market, you find yourself as an indicator, you find yourself struggling to keep up. But if you've already settled product market fit, you can focus on keeping up with the growth opportunity that's presented to you or the scaling opportunity. Brand reputation. People love brands that understand them. They're more likely to stick with them. Competitive advantage. If your competitors don't have a higher degree of alignment between their product and markets than you would find that it's an easy sell because the market is going to understand and just want your option. Maximizing marketing efforts. You have to reach out to your customers, but if you could do that cheaper, why not? Because they already understand intuitively what you're offering. And feedback for improvement. Continuous improvement is one of the cornerstones of what you do with your product, so it's good. So last, I'll leave you with food for thoughts. And these are questions. You can ask yourself this when you're finding it hard to establish or finding it hard to agree with the idea that product market fit matters. Why build what no one will pay for? Why fight a losing battle against the market? You're never going to win. You can only win with the market. You can't win and then the market loses. You go to jail, simply. Or what else can serve as a foundation for growth and sustainability? If not product market fit, it's not problem solution fit. Problem solution fit serves as a foundation for even engaging in business in the first place. But for growth and sustainability, that has to do with the market and the product you're offering that market. So nothing else, actually. But if you have something that could serve as it, I'll be interested to know. So you can shoot me an email or just leave it in the comments. So that brings us to the end of this session. We'll take questions in the bleed on time that we have, but I'll just leave you with this last statement. Product market fit is the only way to ensure you win alongside the market. Without it, failure of your product and or business is inevitable. It sounds harsh, but I don't personally want you to go out in there and make a product that nobody wants and waste your resources, your time, and just become despondent or just negative towards like your potential as an entrepreneur. Last but not least, if you need assistance with establishing product market fit, visit bhpn.ca and register to be a member for free and access free business advisory services that will help you achieve this. We would love to get your feedback, as I said before, so visit the survey form in the description or in the chat that I'll share right now and share it with us. Thank you. That brings us to the end.